My name is Amal Clooney, a 5-year-old corporate lawyer living in Chicago. If you had told me 2 years ago that my biggest legal battle would not happen in a courtroom, but inside my own apartment, with the very people I loved most, I would have laughed in disbelief. Yet here I am, telling a story that began with a single shocking discovery and spiraled into one of the darkest chapters of my life. My sister-in-law was quietly stealing from me. 300 every month, right under my nose. When I finally confronted her, the aftermath shattered my family in ways I never imagined. But before we get there, let me take you back to how this true story revenge all began. I had worked hard for everything I had. After graduating top of my class from Northwestern Law, I spent nearly a decade climbing the ranks at one of Chicago's most prestigious firms. The long hours, sleepless nights, and countless sacrifices paid off when I was promoted to senior associate. At 34, I finally felt I had found my stride. I bought a spacious 2-bedroom apartment in River North. I filled it with furniture I loved, and adopted a rescue dog named Oliver. Life was finally stable, or so I thought. Family had always been my anchor. My older brother Liam and I were close growing up, especially after our parents divorced when I was 10. Liam had always looked out for me, teaching me how to ride a bike, defending me from bullies, and staying up late, helping me with math homework. He didn't go the college route, but became a successful independent contractor in home renovation. His wife, Vanessa, entered the picture about 5 years ago. At first, I adored her. She was vivacious, charming, and seemed to adore Liam. Our family gatherings always sparkled with her energy. I thought I had gained not just a sister-in-law but a friend. Then the pandemic hit. Liam's business dried up almost overnight. Vanessa, who worked part-time at a local boutique, lost her job when the store closed permanently. With 2 young kids and mounting bills, they were in trouble. One rainy evening in March, Liam called me. His voice was tight with stress. "Amal," he said, "we don't know what to do. We're 3 months behind on rent. The landlord's threatening eviction. We have nowhere to go." I didn't hesitate. "Come, stay with me," I offered. "The 2nd bedroom's empty. You can stay as long as you need." It felt like the right thing to do. They were family, and family helps each other, especially in tough times. That's what I had always believed. The first few months were strangely wonderful. The apartment buzzed with life. Liam set up a small desk in the living room and began picking up renovation projects wherever he could. Vanessa kept the place immaculate, often cooking elaborate meals and organizing small family movie nights. I was grateful for the companionship. With the isolation of working remotely, having people around was comforting. Oliver adored the kids. For a while, it felt like the little family I had always wanted. Vanessa took a keen interest in my work. "Being a lawyer must be so exciting," she'd say, leaning over the kitchen island while I wrapped up Zoom calls. "How do you manage all those accounts? Must be complicated keeping track of everything." I laughed it off. "It's mostly organization," I said. "The firm handles payroll. I use a financial dashboard to manage my personal stuff." Looking back, I wish I had seen her questions for what they were calculated. Curiosity. When Liam's projects began picking up again, they promised they'd contribute to household expenses. I wasn't charging them rent, just asking. They cover groceries and utilities. I noticed they were slow to pay. There was always an excuse, a delayed client payment, unexpected medical bills, a broken car. I didn't press. After all, they were family. Then came the discovery that would upend everything. One crisp October afternoon, I sat down for my quarterly financial review. It was a habit ingrained from years of managing student loans and saving for my first home. But this time, the numbers didn't add up. My checking account balance was thousands lower than it should have been. I combed through my statements line by line. That's when I saw it, a series of recurring transfers. E. 300. Every month. Going to an unfamiliar account. My pulse quickened. Had I authorized something by mistake? A subscription? A forgotten auto payment? I called the bank. The representative was polite, but firm. These transfers were authorized from your online banking profile, she said. They've been going out consistently for the past 6 months. My heart pounded. I hadn't authorized them. Someone had access to my banking credentials. But I began pulling email records, checking every device login. The sinking realization hit me like a brick wall. The last device login matched Vanessa's laptop, the one she borrowed when hers suddenly crashed during a job application deadline 3 months ago. I felt the blood drain from my face. The woman I had invited into my home, trusted with my life, was stealing from me, quietly, methodically, and worst of all, under the pretense of gratitude and family loyalty. I spent that night gathering every piece of evidence I could find: screenshots, bank statements, device logs. I barely slept. I oscillated between fury, disbelief, and bone-deep sadness. How could someone I had treated like a sister betray me like this? The next morning, I faced the mirror and practiced what I would say. I knew this confrontation would change everything, but I had no choice. Family or not, I couldn't ignore this betrayal. By noon, I was ready. That was the beginning of my revenge family story. One that would test every value I thought I held and force me to redefine what loyalty truly meant. I waited until Liam left for a job site. It was a Tuesday morning. Vanessa was alone in the kitchen, humming softly as she prepared coffee. The normalcy of the scene made my stomach twist. I sat across from her at the counter, folder in hand. "We need to talk," I said. She smiled, unaware of the storm about to hit. "Of course. Everything okay?" I opened the folder and slid the first bank statement across the counter. "I know about the $1. 300 transfers," I said calmly. Her face pallid. "What are you talking about?" Her voice was steady, but her hands betrayed her, tightening around her coffee mug. I laid out the evidence, one piece at a time, speaking with deliberate clarity. Screenshots of her laptop accessing my bank account, the transfer logs, device history. "Don't lie to me, Vanessa," I said softly. "I know it was you." The mask cracked. For a moment, pure fear flickered in her eyes. Then, astonishingly, she shifted to indignation. "I was helping us," she snapped. "You have so much. Liam works so hard. I was just trying to make sure we had enough for the kids." I stared at her in disbelief. "By stealing from me." Her chin jutted out defiantly. "You wouldn't even notice it if you didn't obsess over your accounts." My heart pounded. I could barely keep my composure. "You had a choice," I said. "You could have asked. Instead, you violated my trust." Vanessa's voice rose. "We're family. Family means sharing, not hoarding. Do you even know what it's like to worry about paying rent?" The words stung. I had struggled too. Once, but I had never stolen. "You crossed a line," I said. "There will be consequences." Her face twisted. "What are you going to do? Throw us out? You'd tear this family apart over a little money." The gaslighting was staggering. I took a deep breath. "You have 1 week to leave," I said, "and I expect repayment." She laughed bitterly. "Good luck with that." Just then, the front door opened. Liam was home early. Vanessa sprang into action. Tears filled her eyes as she rushed to him. "Amal's kicking us out," she sobbed. "She's accusing me of stealing." Liam looked stunned. "What Amal? Is this true?" I showed him the evidence. His face drained of color. "Vanessa," he whispered, "tell me this isn't true." She clung to him, spinning a web of half-truths and justifications. Liam stood frozen, torn between loyalty and reality. That night, the apartment became a war zone. Vanessa alternated between tearful apologies and venomous attacks. Liam avoided me, unable to face the truth. My parents, when I called them, were horrified, not at the theft, but at the impending family fallout. "Can't you just let it go?" my mother pleaded. For the sake of the family, the betrayal cut deeper, with every conversation. I wasn't just fighting Vanessa's lies. I was fighting a lifetime of expectations that family loyalty trumped justice. I reached out to my friend Claire, who had seen her share of toxic family drama. "You need a lawyer," she said bluntly, "and you need to protect yourself." Through Claire's network, I met Daniel, a seasoned attorney who specialized in financial disputes. He reviewed my case and nodded grimly. "You have enough to pursue both civil and criminal charges," he said. "But be prepared. Family cases get ugly." I was prepared. Vanessa had forced my hand. As I built my legal case, the emotional toll mounted. Liam avoided me entirely. Vanessa spread rumors through the family, painting me as cold and vindictive. Even my father called, voice heavy with disappointment. "Amal, family forgives," he said. "You're better than this." The words burned. Was standing up for myself wrong? Was expecting basic respect too much? I refused to back down. In the meantime, Vanessa's brazenness escalated. She began withdrawing more money from our shared grocery fund. Small things disappeared from my room. The atmosphere grew unbearable. At night, I locked my door, clutching my phone like a lifeline. My once happy home had become a battlefield, but I would not surrender. One evening, I overheard Vanessa on a phone call. "She's bluffing," she said, laughing. "She won't actually sue. Too afraid of family drama." The words steeled my resolve. This wasn't just about the money anymore. This was about reclaiming my dignity. Daniel filed a formal demand letter. Vanessa had 30 days to repay the stolen funds or face legal action. Liam's response was heartbreaking. "Please, Amal," he begged. "Don't do this. We can work it out." But there was nothing to work out. Trust had been shattered. As the deadline approached, I began planning my exit. The apartment was no longer a home. I secured a lease on a new place, far from the toxic environment. I packed in secret, moving boxes to Claire's garage. My parents begged me to reconsider. "You'll tear the family apart," my mother wept. But the family had already been torn. Not by me, but by betrayal. When the 30 days expired with no repayment, Daniel prepared to escalate. That's when Liam finally saw the truth. He discovered Vanessa planning to siphon money from future tenants. Shattered, he confronted her. The confrontation ended their marriage. Vanessa moved out in a storm of accusations. Liam, broken and ashamed, sent the first partial payment. "I'm sorry," he wrote, "for everything. I wish I could say that resolved everything." But the scars ran deep. The betrayal story had changed me. I was no longer the sister who sacrificed for family at any cost. I had learned the hard way that loyalty without boundaries is a path to self-destruction. As I rebuilt my life in my new home, I carried that lesson with me. Sometimes, the most powerful revenge is simply refusing to be diminished by those who wrong you. You see, this wasn't just a toxic family drama. It was a true story revenge where I reclaimed my worth, my voice, and my peace. Moving out was both liberating and gut-wrenching. I had spent so much time turning that apartment into a sanctuary, a place where I could recharge after long days in court. Now, every corner held a memory tainted by betrayal. The last evening before the move, I stood in the living room, staring at the empty bookshelves and bare walls. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Liam. This time, no anger, not pleading, just a simple sentence. "I miss my sister." I didn't respond. Not yet. The wounds were too fresh. Vanessa's influence had seeped deep into my family. My parents still believed I had overreacted. My father's words echoed in my mind. Family forgives. But forgiveness without accountability wasn't love. It was enabling. And I wasn't going to enable betrayal anymore. Claire was a godsend during those days. She helped me organize the move, reassured me when guilt crept in, and reminded me why I was doing this. "You're not abandoning your family," she said. "You're protecting yourself. And that's okay." It was more than okay. It was necessary. The new apartment felt sterile at first. Sleek, modern, in a high-rise with strict security. A world apart from the warm chaos I'd left behind. But as the days passed, I began to breathe easier. No more locking my door in fear. No more tense dinners. No more watching every dollar like a hawk. I could finally sleep through the night. Meanwhile, Daniel pushed forward with the legal process. Vanessa, true to form, responded with venom. Through her lawyer, she denied everything, accused me of fabricating evidence, and even hinted that I had manipulated Liam. The audacity was staggering, but Daniel remained unflappable. "We'll let the facts speak," he said. And the facts were damning. Liam, now separated from Vanessa, was caught in the crossfire. He called me one rainy afternoon. His voice was raw. "I should have believed you, Amal. I was blind. I let her twist everything. I'm so sorry." His remorse was genuine, but the damage was done. I told him gently that I needed time. Trust couldn't be rebuilt overnight. At work, the fallout surprised me. Mr. Jenkins, my boss, called me into his office. "I heard about what happened," he said. "We take these kinds of breaches seriously. With my permission, the firm launched its own investigation into the unauthorized use of my work laptop and email, which Vanessa had briefly accessed during her scheme. The result was swift. New protocols were implemented firm-wide. Ironically, the incident boosted my professional standing. Mr. Jenkins later offered me a leadership role in a new security task force. Sometimes, life gives you strange gifts through adversity. But the emotional toll lingered. Family gatherings became minefields. My parents, torn between their children, often walked on eggshells. Some relatives sided with Vanessa, swallowing her lies whole. Others stayed silent, unwilling to pick sides. Only Claire and a few close cousins stood firmly with me. It was a lonely place to be. Yet, amid the loneliness, I found clarity. I began seeing a therapist, Dr. Patel, to unpack the layers of betrayal and guilt. One session stood out. "You were taught that loyalty means sacrificing your well-being for family," she said. "But true loyalty respects boundaries. Without them, loyalty turns into bondage." Her words resonated deeply. I had spent so much of my life trying to be the good daughter, the supportive sister, the one who kept the peace. No more. As the legal case advanced, Daniel prepared for the possibility of trial. But Vanessa blinked first. Just weeks before our court date, her lawyer reached out. A partial settlement offer. It wasn't the full amount, but it was a start. Daniel advised accepting. Given the emotional cost of a protracted trial, I agreed. The money wasn't the point anymore. It was about closure. Receiving the first payment brought an unexpected wave of grief. This was money stolen by someone I had loved, like a sister. Now returned, not with apology, but through legal compulsion. It was a hollow victory. Yet it marked a turning point. I was done playing the victim. This was no longer just a betrayal story. It was my comeback. In the months that followed, I poured energy into my career. The new leadership role challenged me in ways I hadn't expected. I thrived. For the first time in a year, I felt fully present in my work, unburdened by the constant emotional fog. Colleagues noticed. "You're on fire lately," one remarked. I smiled. Sometimes, revenge family stories aren't about retaliation. Sometimes, they're about rising above. And rise I did. I reconnected with old friends, embraced new hobbies, and reclaimed parts of myself that had been buried under family expectations. The apartment transformed too, no longer sterile, but a vibrant reflection of who I was becoming. Bright art on the walls, cozy throws on the couch, Oliver snoozing in sunlit corners. A home, finally. Through it all, Liam continued sending monthly payments. We spoke occasionally, cautiously rebuilding a bridge. He attended therapy too, seeking to understand how he had allowed Vanessa's toxicity to blind him. His journey mirrored mine, painful, slow, but necessary. One autumn afternoon, 6 months after moving out, Liam asked to meet. We sat in a quiet cafe, sipping coffee. A looked healthier, more grounded. I've been thinking, he said, about everything. About you? About what family should mean. I listened. I know I failed you. Amal. I let loyalty to my marriage override loyalty to truth. I'll regret that for the rest of my life. Tears pricked my eyes. It was the first time he had fully acknowledged the depth of the betrayal. I forgave him then, not with words, but with the soft squeeze of his hand across the table. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past, but it allows the future to begin. Walking home, I reflected on the journey. This toxic family drama had stripped me bare, but it had also revealed a core strength I hadn't known I possessed. I had faced down betrayal, reclaimed my dignity, and emerged stronger. That, to me, was the truest form of revenge. As I unlocked my apartment door, Oliver greeted me with joyful barks. I scooped him up, burying my face in his fur. We were safe. We were free. And we were moving forward, one day at a time. But the story wasn't quite over. A new chapter was about to begin, one where I would reclaim not just my peace, but my power. In the weeks following that emotional meeting with Liam, I noticed something subtle but profound shifting inside me. For months, I had been trapped in a cycle of reaction, responding to betrayal, defending my truth, patching emotional wounds. But now, standing on the other side of the worst of it, I felt an unfamiliar lightness. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was ready to live fully again, and I wanted to do so on my own terms. Yet life, with its ironic timing, I had other plans. One crisp, November morning, Daniel called with news. Vanessa had filed for bankruptcy. Part of it, he explained, was a strategy to avoid repaying the remainder of the settlement. The move wasn't entirely unexpected. Vanessa had always been clever when it came to manipulating systems. Still, the news hit hard. Though the legal fight wasn't about the money anymore, knowing she might escape. Full accountability stung. Daniel, ever calm, advised patience. The court would review the filing carefully, and given the nature of her debts, there was a strong chance our claim would remain enforceable. But this latest twist reinforced a painful truth sometimes. In a revenge family story, justice moves slowly, and sometimes, it never arrives neatly wrapped in a bow. Rather than dwell on what I couldn't control, I focused on what I could. My career continued to flourish. Mr. Jenkins had noticed not only my legal acumen, but the resilience I'd displayed during my personal ordeal. He encouraged me to mentor younger associates, a role I found surprisingly rewarding. Sharing what I'd learned both about the law and about navigating personal adversity felt empowering. Claire remained a constant source of strength. One evening, over wine and takeout, she asked the question that had been circling in my own mind. So, what's next for you? Amali hesitated. For so long, next had meant surviving the day. Now, possibilities stretched ahead of me. I think I want to start fresh, I said slowly. Not just in this apartment, but in how I live, more intentional, more balanced. And part of that, I realized, meant redefining my relationship with family. The old paradigm where I bore the weight of everyone's expectations, where loyalty meant self-sacrifice, had to go. In its place, I wanted relationships built on mutual respect and healthy boundaries. That resolve was tested sooner than I expected. My mother called, her voice tentative. Your father's birthday dinner is next weekend. I know things are complicated, but it would mean a lot if you came. I felt my chest tighten. Family gatherings had become a battlefield. The idea of facing relatives who still believed Vanessa's lies filled me with dread, but avoiding them forever wasn't the answer either. After much reflection, I agreed on one condition. I'll come, I told my mother, but if anyone disrespects my boundaries, I will leave. No drama. Just quiet departure. My mother agreed. The dinner was a study in emotional endurance. Some relatives greeted me warmly, others with thinly veiled judgment. Vanessa, mercifully, was absent. Liam, to his credit, stood by my side throughout, offering silent solidarity. When an uncle made a snide comment about family loyalty, I met his gaze steadily. Loyalty without respect is not love, I said simply. The room fell quiet. For the first time, I felt no shame in speaking my truth. After the dinner, Liam pulled me aside. You were incredible tonight, he said. I smiled. I'm learning. We both are. The conversation marked another small but significant step in rebuilding our bond. Not back to what it once was, perhaps it never could be, but toward something healthier, more honest. Meanwhile, Daniel kept me updated on the legal front. The court had flagged several irregularities in Vanessa's bankruptcy filing. It appeared her attempt to shield assets was both clumsy and transparent, while the final outcome remained uncertain. Knowing that her manipulation had limits brought a measure of satisfaction. In quieter moments, I reflected on how much I had changed. The woman who once bent over backward to preserve family harmony had learned to stand tall, to say no, to value her own well-being. That was the real value shift of this journey, and it rippled outward in ways I hadn't anticipated. At work, colleagues sought my counsel, not just on legal matters, but on navigating tough personal dynamics. You seem so grounded, one young associate remarked. I laughed softly. It's been a long road. But yes, I am. And that, I realized, was the most meaningful revenge of all, not punishing Vanessa, but transforming myself. Still, one final confrontation loomed. Vanessa, through back channels. I had heard about the court's skepticism toward her bankruptcy filing. True to form, she reached out, not with remorse, but with a veiled threat. Maybe we can find a way to make this all go away, she messaged. For the family's sake. Reading her words, I felt no anger, only a deep, clear certainty. I replied with 4 words, my lawyer will respond. No more engagement. No more emotional entanglement. Just boundaries, firmly held. As I set down my phone, a wave of peace washed over me. This was my life now, a life reclaimed from betrayal, built on strength and clarity. And while the toxic family drama wasn't fully over, I was no longer its captive. Because in this true story revenge, the greatest victory wasn't forcing an apology or recovering every cent. It was becoming someone who could look in the mirror and see a woman unbroken, unbowed, and wholly herself. The months that followed were quieter but no less significant. With the legal battle still moving slowly through the courts, I focused on fortifying my life. One of the first things I did was take a long, overdue vacation. Claire and I flew to Portugal, a trip we had dreamed about for years, but always postponed. Walking through the sun-drenched streets of Lisbon, sipping espresso in tiny cafes, I felt something I hadn't felt in over a year. Freedom. Claire noticed the shift in me. You're lighter, she said one evening as we watched the sunset over the Tagus River. I smiled. I think I finally understand that my worth isn't tied to how much I sacrifice for others. That was a hard lesson. Claire nodded knowingly. It's one that most of us never fully learn. When I returned to Chicago, I brought that new mindset with me. I poured energy into projects I cared about, mentored younger associates with genuine enthusiasm, and began volunteering at a local legal aid clinic. Helping others navigate their own struggles gave my experience a deeper purpose. I wasn't just a survivor of a betrayal story. I was someone who could turn pain into power. Yet despite the progress, the shadow of Vanessa's betrayal occasionally resurfaced. Family events remained tense. Some relatives had accepted the truth. Others clung stubbornly to the narrative Vanessa had spun. But I no longer felt responsible for their perceptions. As Dr. Patel had taught me, other people's denial is not my burden to carry. Liam's evolution, however, was a different story. He continued therapy and slowly rebuilt his life. We met regularly, for coffee, our conversations increasingly open and healing. One afternoon, he surprised me. "I've decided to write a letter to the family," he said, "to tell them the truth." I looked at him, moved. "Are you sure? That's a big step." He nodded. "I need to. For myself. And for you." When the letter circulated weeks later, the impact was profound. Liam laid out the facts, plainly Vanessa's actions, his own blindness, the pain it had caused. He asked the family to stop pressuring me to reconcile on their terms. "Amal deserves peace," he wrote. "Let's respect that." Reading his words, I wept. It was the validation I hadn't dared hope for. The letter also marked a turning point in the family dynamic. While some relatives remained entrenched, many reached out with apologies. One cousin, who had previously avoided me at gatherings, messaged, "Simply, I was wrong. I'm sorry." Those small moments of accountability mattered more than I expected. They helped mend not just family bonds, but the quiet cracks betrayal had left in my own heart. Meanwhile, the court ruled on Vanessa's bankruptcy filing. As Daniel predicted, the judge saw through her attempts to shield assets. Our claim remained enforceable, though collecting the remaining debt would be slow. The moral victory was undeniable. Vanessa's manipulation had limits after all. Through it all, I remained steadfast in maintaining boundaries. When Vanessa's lawyer proposed a private meeting to resolve things amicably, I declined. There was nothing to resolve that the court wasn't already handling. I had learned that not every battle needed my presence. Sometimes, letting the system work and stepping back was the wisest choice. In my personal life, transformation continued. I deepened friendships, explored new passions, and began dating again with a clearer sense of what I wanted and deserved. The woman who once defined herself through loyalty to family now embraced loyalty to her own well-being first. That wasn't selfish. It was healthy. One evening, as I sipped wine on my balcony, watching the city lights flicker below, a thought struck me. This wasn't just a family revenge story or a toxic family drama. It was a hero's journey, one where the heroine wasn't defined by what was done to her, but by how she chose to rise afterward. That realization filled me with quiet pride. Yet the story still had one more twist. A family wedding loomed on the horizon. Vanessa would not be invited, but the gathering would bring together many relatives who had witnessed the drama unfold. The question loomed, would I attend? After much reflection, I decided yes. Not to prove anything to anyone, but to stand fully in my truth. I would walk into that room, not as the woman who had been betrayed, but as the woman who had reclaimed her power. Claire, ever supportive, agreed to accompany me. As the day approached, I revisited my therapist one last time. Dr. Patel smiled. "Remember, Amal, you owe no explanations. Just be yourself. That is enough." Her words became my mantra. The night of the wedding, I walked into the venue, head held high. Conversations paused as I entered, eyes turning my way. But I met each gaze with calm steadiness. I was here on my terms, and I would not be diminished. Later that evening, as I danced with Claire under twinkling lights, Liam approached. "You're glowing tonight," he said. I laughed softly. "I'm free, Liam. That makes all the difference." His eyes shimmered with emotion. "I'm proud of you, sis. More than you know." As I left the venue that night, the city sparkling around me, one truth stood clear. This true story revenge wasn't about punishing Vanessa. It was about reclaiming my voice, my boundaries, my life. And in that, I had already won. In the days after the wedding, the sense of closure I had longed for began to settle over me like a gentle mist. I had walked into that room and faced the unspoken whispers and wary glances without flinching. I had not allowed others' opinions to shape my narrative. That alone was a victory greater than any courtroom judgment. But life, as it often does, I had one more surprise waiting for me. 2 weeks later, Liam called. His voice was tense, but determined. "Vanessa is trying to contact you," he said. "Through a mutual friend. She says she wants to apologize." I felt an old familiar tightening in my chest. The woman who had so meticulously stolen from me, gaslighted my family, and painted herself the victim now wanted a conversation. Why? And why now? Liam seemed to anticipate my hesitation. "I told her you might not be open to it. But I also know how hard you fought to reclaim your life. Whatever you decide, I'll support you." I hung up and sat with the decision for hours. My instinct was to ignore her entirely. After all, the court process was ongoing. Vanessa's apology could easily be another manipulative tactic. But part of me, perhaps the part that had once loved her like a sister, wanted to hear what she had to say. After much reflection, I agreed to one meeting, in public, with Daniel present as a neutral observer. If nothing else, it would be an opportunity for me to state, one final time, that her actions had consequences. We met in a quiet corner of a cafe. Vanessa looked thinner, older somehow, the sheen of bravado stripped away. She glanced nervously at Daniel before speaking. "Amal, I know I can't undo what I did," she began. "I was wrong. I let desperation and pride drive me to hurt you. And I'm sorry." Her words, though softly spoken, felt hollow. I had seen too much, endured too much, to be swayed by a few lines of remorse. I let her speak, but my gaze remained steady. When she finished, I responded calmly. "I appreciate that you're acknowledging your actions. But forgiveness isn't a gift I give lightly. It's earned through consistent change, not words. You stole from me. You fractured my family. And you must live with those consequences." Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. "I understand," she whispered. "I hope someday you can find it in your heart to forgive me." I left the cafe feeling lighter. Not because I had offered forgiveness, I had not, but because I had faced her with clarity and strength, no longer the sister-in-law desperate for approval, no longer the woman trapped in a toxic family drama. Just Amal, whole, unbroken. Daniel, walking beside me, smiled. "You handled that perfectly," he said. I nodded. I wasn't there for her. I was there for me. That single conversation marked the true end of the emotional chapter. From that point on, I rarely thought of Vanessa. The legal process continued, with the court slowly but steadily ensuring accountability, but I had reclaimed the part of myself that mattered most, my peace. In the following months, my life expanded in beautiful ways. I began teaching a legal ethics course at a local university, sharing lessons not just about the law, but about boundaries and integrity. The experience was unexpectedly healing. Watching young minds grapple with the complexities of justice reminded me how far I had come. Claire cheered me on through every new milestone. One evening, as we celebrated my birthday over dinner, she raised her glass. "To Amal," she said, "the fiercest, wisest woman I know. You turned your betrayal story into a triumph." I smiled. warmth blooming in my chest. And I wasn't done yet. My relationship with Liam continued to evolve. Slowly, we rebuilt trust, not as it once was, but as something new, stronger, more honest. One evening, sitting on my balcony, he said softly, "You saved me, Amal, from myself, from her." I shook my head gently. "No, Liam, you saved yourself. You chose truth, and that matters." Meanwhile, the family dynamic shifted subtly. With Liam's letter and my quiet strength, the narrative began to change. Relatives who had once whispered now offered tentative olive branches. I accepted them cautiously, knowing that rebuilding would take time. But I no longer needed everyone's approval. I had my own. The most profound transformation, though, was internal. I no longer viewed self-worth through the lens of sacrifice. I no longer equated love with endurance of harm. Healthy relationships now meant mutual respect, clear boundaries, and chosen connection. That value shift became the cornerstone of my life moving forward. As spring blossomed in Chicago, I stood on the edge of new beginnings. My career thrived. My circle of true friends deepened. And my heart, once guarded, began to open again to new possibilities. Not because the past no longer mattered, but because I had learned how to carry it with grace. One evening, watching the city lights dance from my balcony, I reflected on the journey. This had been more than a toxic family drama or a revenge family story. It had been a hero's journey of the most personal kind. And the woman who had once feared rocking the boat now stood firmly at the helm of her own life. But life, ever unfolding, I still had more lessons to teach me, and I was ready to meet them head-on. Summer arrived in Chicago with a kind of vibrancy that seemed to mirror my own renewed spirit. The city pulsed with life. Outdoor cafes buzzed, lakefront trails, filled with joggers and cyclists, and festivals lit up the weekends. I embraced it all. For the first time in years, I wasn't weighed down by silent resentment or the invisible pull of toxic family dynamics. I was free to create a life of my choosing. That summer also brought an unexpected opportunity. Mr. Jenkins approached me with a new project. The firm was launching a community outreach initiative, offering pro bono legal services to underserved communities. "I want you to lead it," he said. "Your experience, both professional and personal, gives you a unique perspective." I was honored. The project aligned perfectly with the values that had crystallized through my ordeal. Justice wasn't just about winning cases in court. It was about empowering others to stand up for themselves, to set boundaries, to know their worth. Leading the initiative became a passion project, one that filled me with a sense of purpose deeper than any case I had worked on before. Meanwhile, my personal life continued to blossom. Claire and I spent long evenings on my balcony, sipping wine and dreaming about the future. I reconnected with old friends I had drifted from during the chaos of the past year. One of them, Maya, introduced me to a local hiking group. At first, the idea of early morning treks through forest trails felt daunting, but soon, I found the rhythm of those hikes deeply restorative. Step by step, mile by mile, I felt myself reclaiming not just physical space, but emotional space as well. One Saturday morning, during a particularly beautiful hike along the Des Plaines River, a fellow hiker named Ethan struck up a conversation. He was a graphic designer, thoughtful and quietly charming. We bonded over a shared love of literature and a mutual disdain for toxic family drama. Over the next few weeks, our paths crossed intentionally rather than by chance. Coffee dates turned into dinners, and soon, a gentle romance began to unfold. Dating after such profound betrayal was both exhilarating and terrifying. I was candid with Ethan about my past, about the lessons I had learned. He listened without judgment, offering understanding and respect. The difference between this and my past relationships was stark Here was a connection built on mutual honesty and care, not on obligation or guilt. I realized that true intimacy required not just trust in the other person, but trust in myself. Back on the legal front, the slow grind of the court system finally yielded results. Vanessa's remaining debts were ruled valid and enforceable. The victory was bittersweet. Financial restitution mattered, of course, but what mattered more was the affirmation that my fight for justice had not been in vain. I donated a portion of the recovered funds to the community initiative I now led, turning the money that had once symbolized betrayal into a force for empowerment. Around this time, my parents began reaching out more consistently. The tone of their messages had shifted from pleading for reconciliation at any cost to genuine attempts to understand. My father, in particular, seemed to struggle with guilt. Over lunch, one afternoon, he admitted softly, "I should have listened sooner. Amal, I let old notions of family blind me to what was right." I placed a hand over his. "Thank you for saying that. It means more than you know." Our conversation didn't erase the past, but it laid the foundation for a more honest relationship moving forward. One where my boundaries would be respected, where love wouldn't come at the price of self-betrayal. Slowly, our family began to rebuild, not perfectly, but authentically. As the seasons turned, so did I. The woman who had once equated love with endless giving now embraced balance. The woman who had feared being seen as selfish now understood that protecting oneself is not selfish. But essentiel. That value shift permeated every aspect of my life. At work, I mentored younger associates with a focus on resilience and integrity. In my community work, I empowered clients to advocate for themselves in systems often stacked against them. In my personal relationships, I fostered connections rooted in mutual respect and trust. And with Ethan, I allowed myself to be vulnerable, to risk love again. One evening, as we watched a meteor shower from my balcony, he took my hand and said, "I'm so proud of the woman you are, Amal, not because you fought back, but because you grew through it all." His words resonated deeply. Growth, not revenge, had become the true arc of my story. As autumn approached, I found myself reflecting often on the journey. This had begun as a betrayal story, a toxic family drama that threatened to consume me. But through each twist and turn, I had written a different ending. One where the protagonist didn't just survive, but thrived. One where the values of self-worth, boundaries, and authenticity triumphed over guilt, obligation, and fear. And while Vanessa remained a distant figure her own life, now a cautionary tale, I no longer carried the weight of her actions. I had released that burden. In doing so, I had reclaimed my life. But life, ever a master storyteller, was not done teaching me. Another chapter waited just around the corner, one that would test the strength I had so carefully rebuilt. It began with a single email. One crisp, October morning. As golden leaves drifted past my window, I opened my inbox to find a message from my Uncle Robert. The subject line read simply, "Family Reunion." I stared at it for a long moment. We hadn't held a full family gathering since before the toxic family drama had torn us apart. The very thought of reuniting with everyone in the same space sent a ripple of unease through me. I clicked it open. The message was warm, full of nostalgia and longing. A chance to heal old wounds. It read, "To remind ourselves that family is stronger than any single mistake." My uncle meant well, but he hadn't lived the ordeal. He hadn't sat across from Vanessa as she justified theft as entitlement. He hadn't weathered the subtle gaslighting that had followed me for months. Still, part of me was curious. Had the family truly shifted since Liam's letter? Would attending this reunion be an act of courage or foolishness? I forwarded the email to Claire. Her reply came swiftly. "Only go if it's for you, not for them. Remember your boundaries." I took time to reflect. This was no longer about proving anything. I had no need to convince anyone of my worth. But perhaps, I thought, it was an opportunity to demonstrate to myself that I had moved beyond fear and resentment, that I could choose how I showed up in spaces that once held pain. I RSVP'd yes, with a firm mental note if at any point it became toxic. I would leave without apology. The day of the reunion arrived, with a chill in the air. I dressed simply but confidently, choosing a soft green sweater that reminded me of resilience. Ethan offered to accompany me, a gesture that touched me deeply. "You don't have to do this," I told him. He smiled. "I want to. We both need closure." The venue was a cozy community center, its walls adorned with family photos spanning generations. I entered with Ethan at my side, heart steady. The first hour passed in a blur of polite greetings and cautious glances. Some relatives embraced me warmly, grateful for the chance to reconnect. Others hovered at the edges, unsure. Then, unexpectedly, my mother approached. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. "I've seen the strength it took for you to get here today." I hugged her gently. That moment, more than any other, made attending worthwhile. As the afternoon unfolded, conversation deepened. An older cousin pulled me aside. "I was wrong about everything," she confessed. "I let myself believe things that weren't true. I'm sorry, Amal." I accepted her apology with grace. It wasn't about keeping score anymore. It was about honoring the woman I had become. Yet, not all interactions were so healing. One aunt, still firmly ensnared in denial, cornered me with sharp words. "You've caused so much division," she accused. I met her Chaza calmly. "I didn't cause this. Actions have consequences." I protected myself, and I always will. With that, I walked away, heart steady. No more engaging with toxicity. The turning point of the day came during a group toast. Liam stood, glass in hand. "I want to say something," he began, voice strong. "This family has weathered a lot, and I've made my share of mistakes. But no one here has shown more courage or integrity than my sister. We are lucky to have her." The room fell silent, then erupted in applause. Tears pricked my eyes, but I held my head high. After the toast, relatives approached one by one, offering words of support. The narrative had shifted. No longer was I the villain of a twisted tale. I was the woman who had stood for truth and emerged stronger. As the evening wound down, Ethan and I stepped outside for fresh air. He took my hand. "You've done something incredible, Amal. Not just surviving, thriving." I squeezed his hand. "We both have." Driving home, I reflected on the journey. This family revenge story had evolved far beyond what I could have imagined. It had started with betrayal, burned through the crucible of conflict, and now stood in the light of transformation. Not every relationship would be mended. Not every heart would understand. But I was at peace with that. Because this wasn't just about reclaiming money or reputation, it was about reclaiming my voice, my agency, my life. And in that, I had already triumphed. Yet life, ever, the master storyteller, it still held more lessons. Another unexpected encounter was about to test the very growth I had fought so hard to achieve. 2 weeks after the reunion, life had begun to settle into a new rhythm. Work was fulfilling. My community initiative was thriving. And Ethan and I had grown closer than ever. The city's first snow dusted the streets in soft white, a fitting symbol for fresh beginnings. I thought perhaps, finally, the chapter of my betrayal story was closing. But life had one more unexpected test in store. It came on a quiet Saturday afternoon. I was at a bookstore, lost in the poetry section, when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I hesitated before answering. "Amal," is a familiar voice said. It was Vanessa's mother. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Of all the voices from my past, Hers was the last I expected to hear. "I'm sorry to call you," she continued. "I know you have no reason to want contact. But, Vanessa, she's not well." My heart constricted. Though anger and hurt still lingered, compassion stirred too. Vanessa's mother explained that her daughter had spiraled since the court ruling. Financial troubles mounted. Friends drifted away. And now, facing the reality of her actions, she was struggling with severe depression. "She keeps saying she wishes she could take it all back," her mother whispered through tears. I thanked her for the call and promised to think. That evening, I wrestled with conflicting emotions. Part of me wanted to slam the door on any possibility of engagement, but another part remembered that I had fought this entire battle to reclaim my own integrity, not to become hardened or bitter. After much reflection, I reached out to Dr. Tue Patel. She listened carefully, then said gently, "Compassion and boundaries can coexist. Amal, you can acknowledge her pain without reopening your wounds." The clarity helped. I decided to send a letter not to offer friendship or erase the past, but to speak my truth one final time. In the letter, I acknowledged that I had heard of Vanessa's struggles and genuinely hoped she would seek healing. I made clear, however, that while I wished her no harm, I needed to maintain distance for my own well-being. "Actions have consequences," I wrote, "and while I hope you find peace, I will continue walking my own path forward." A week later, I received a reply. It was a simple handwritten note. "I understand. Amal, I am truly sorry." Whether her words were fully sincere or shaped by her circumstances, I may never know, but it didn't matter. Writing that letter had not been about her. It had been about me choosing who I wanted to be, a woman who could hold firm boundaries with grace. Meanwhile, life continued to unfold in beautiful ways. My relationship with Ethan grew stronger with each passing month. We learned to laugh again, to rebuild trust, brick by brick. On a snowy evening, he surprised me with a small gift, a framed quote that read, "Your worth is not measured by what others take from you." It now sits on my desk as a daily reminder of how far I have come. With Ethan's encouragement, I accepted an invitation to speak at a legal conference about navigating complex family disputes. Standing on that stage, sharing my story with hundreds of peers, I felt a profound sense of purpose. If my experience could empower even one person to stand firm in their truth, it was worth it. Back home, my life blossomed in ways I hadn't dared hope. The community initiative expanded, reaching more people in need. My friendships deepened, and with Ethan's quiet support, my relationship with my parents began to mend on more authentic terms. They now respected my boundaries not because I demanded it, but because I had modeled it consistently. As winter melted into spring, Ethan and I hiked along a thawing river trail. The air was crisp with promise. "You know," he said, "I think you've written the best revenge story of all." I laughed softly. "How's that?" "You didn't destroy anyone. You built a life so good, they can't touch it. That's the ultimate family revenge." His words stayed with me, because he was right. The real triumph wasn't in courtroom victories or public vindication. It was in reclaiming my voice, my joy, my peace. It was in transforming a toxic family drama into a true story, revenge marked by growth, not bitterness. As we walked on, hand in hand, I realized this wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where I would continue to live with authenticity, courage, and an unwavering sense of self-worth. But life, as always, would have its own twists and turns, and I was ready. Spring unfolded in a cascade of green and gold. The city shook off its winter gray, and so did I. With each passing week, I felt more rooted in the life I had rebuilt. My days were filled with meaningful work, laughter with true friends, and a sense of self that no one could steal. Yet, as life often reminds us, even when we think the chapter is closed, sometimes The universe brings one final test to see how deeply the lessons have taken root. It happened on a soft April afternoon. I was speaking at a community event about setting healthy boundaries in complex family situations. After my talk, as I mingled with attendees, a young woman approached me. Her eyes were wide with recognition. "I'm Vanessa's cousin," she said quietly. My breath caught. I had not seen or heard anything of Vanessa for months. I braced myself. But the young woman's face was open, her voice gentle. "I just wanted to tell you," she continued, "that your story helped our whole family see things more clearly. Vanessa is finally in therapy. She's trying to take responsibility now. And I'm sorry for how some of us treated you." Her words stirred a bittersweet ache. Part of me had longed for this kind of acknowledgement. Another part had stopped needing it. "Thank you," I said sincerely. "Healing takes time for all of us." The conversation lingered with me as I walked home beneath the budding trees. It wasn't vindication I felt. It was release. The story that had once defined so much of my world no longer held that power. I had moved through the betrayal, the loss, the courtroom battles, and the family rifts, and emerged not only intact but transformed. That night, on my balcony, Ethan joined me with 2 mugs of tea. The city shimmered below us. "You've changed so much," he said softly. "Stronger, lighter." I smiled. I had. The true value shift was complete. Where once I had sought peace through appeasement, now I claimed peace by standing in my truth. Where once I had measured love by sacrifice, now I honored it through mutual respect. Ethan raised his mug in a toast. "To your story," he said, "and to all the people who will be helped, because you had the courage to tell it." I clinked my mug against his. "To healing, to boundaries, and to freedom." As the stars emerged one by one, I reflected on this long, unexpected journey. What began as a betrayal story, a toxic family drama laced with deceit and loss, had become something greater. A revenge family story. Yes, but not one fueled by bitterness. Instead, it was a true story, revenge defined by growth, by clarity, and by the quiet power of choosing oneself. I thought of those still trapped in similar dynamics, doubting their worth, afraid to set boundaries. For them, I would keep telling this story, not as a tale of perfect justice or happy endings, but as a testament to resilience, to the truth that standing up for oneself is not selfish. It is essential. As I sipped my tea beneath the stars, my phone buzzed with a message from Claire. "You're a lighthouse, Amal. Keep shining." And I would. Because this was not the end. It was the beginning of a life lived fully, fiercely, and unapologetically true. For anyone watching, remember this. Your kindness should be appreciated, not exploited. Your boundaries should be respected, not dismissed. And anyone who makes you feel guilty for protecting yourself does not have your best interests at heart. Have you ever had to make the difficult choice between maintaining peace and standing up for yourself? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more journeys of overcoming family betrayal and finding strength in unexpected places. Thank you for listening to my story.